It was supposed to be the happiest night of his life. An Uber driver, James, had just married the love of his life, Sarah, after years of dreaming about their future together. The reception was magical, and the night was filled with laughter and joy as friends and family celebrated their union. But as the evening wore on, a single moment shattered everything. James overheard a whispered conversation between Sarah and his best friend, Mark, who had been his closest confidant since childhood. What he heard left him frozen. Sarah was pregnant, but the baby wasn't his. It was Mark's. Confusion turned to disbelief, then rage. How could the two people he trusted most betray him in this way? As the truth unraveled, the emotional chaos pushed James to the edge. What happened next would forever alter their lives, leaving James couldn't stop replaying the words in his head as he stood frozen outside the room. His heart pounded as pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. Those late-night calls Mark claimed were work-related, the subtle looks he hadn't noticed before, and Sarah's distant behavior in the weeks leading up to the wedding. He stepped away quietly, his mind racing. Memories of their love story flashed before him. Their first date, the laughter, the promises they made. How could Sarah betray him? And Mark, his so-called brother, who had been there for every milestone in his life. As James struggled to compose himself, he couldn't shake the burning question. How long had this been going on? He debated confronting them right then and there, but stopped. He needed answers first, and he needed to understand how his best friend and his wife had gotten here without him noticing. A trail of heartbreak no one could have predicted. James spent the rest of the night in a daze, pretending everything was fine, while every interaction with Sarah and Mark felt like a knife twisting in his chest. He watched them closely, noticing things he had overlooked before. How Mark always seemed to find a reason to be near Sarah. How her laughter came easier when he was around. It all seemed so obvious now, but why hadn't he seen it before? The next day, James did something he never thought he'd do. He began digging, checking Sarah's phone while she was in the shower, scrolling through old messages and emails, looking for proof of what he feared. What he found wasn't just evidence, it was a story. Months of secret meetings, late-night confessions, and promises made behind his back. But there was something else too. A message from Mark, sent just hours before the wedding, that hinted at a decision they had made. A decision James couldn't yet understand. James could feel his world collapsing as he pieced together the hidden story. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was calculated. That message from Mark, sent just before the ceremony, hinted at their plan to reveal the truth. Were they planning to tell him after the wedding? Or had they decided to keep him in the dark forever? The weight of it all became unbearable. James couldn't focus, couldn't eat, couldn't breathe without feeling the sting of their lies. He began to obsess over every detail, replaying moments that suddenly felt tainted, like when Mark had been his best man, standing beside him with a smile, knowing the truth. One evening, as James sat alone in the dark, his phone buzzed. It was Mark, asking to meet. The message was casual, but James could sense there was more to it. Heart-pounding, he agreed. This was his chance to confront Mark and finally get the answers he needed. James arrived at the coffee shop where Mark had asked to meet, his mind racing with possibilities. He had rehearsed what he would say, but the moment Mark walked in, casually smiling like nothing was wrong, James felt his anger bubble to the surface. Forcing himself to stay calm, he let Mark start the conversation. Mark's tone was light, even friendly, as he talked about mundane things. It was almost as if he was testing the waters, trying to gauge if James knew anything. Finally, James couldn't hold back. "Cut the act," he said, his voice trembling. "I know." Mark's smile faltered, But before James could push further, Mark surprised him with a twist he didn't see coming. "You don't know everything," Mark said quietly, leaning closer. "It's not just Sarah. This goes deeper than you think." James froze, the weight of Mark's words sinking in. What could be worse than what he already knew? Suddenly, this wasn't just about betrayal. It was about a secret that could unravel everything he thought he understood. James stared at Mark, his heart pounding. "What do you mean, deeper? What else could there possibly be?" he demanded. Mark hesitated, his confident demeanor cracking. "It wasn't supposed to happen this way," Mark muttered, almost to himself. "But now, you deserve to know everything." Mark revealed a truth James couldn't have prepared for. Sarah wasn't the only one keeping secrets. Mark had been struggling financially for months and had used James's trust to borrow money, more than James ever realized. The affair wasn't just emotional, it was tangled in a web of manipulation. Sarah had found out about Mark's debts and threatened to expose him unless he confessed. The pregnancy, Mark admitted, was likely a lie, an attempt by Sarah to keep Mark on edge and in her control. James felt the room spin as Mark's words sank in. Everything he thought he knew was built on lies. Just as he was about to confront Sarah with this new information, his phone buzzed. A message popped up from an unknown number. Asterisk asterisk, "You think you know the truth, but you don't. Meet me tonight, alone." Asterisk asterisk. James stood frozen, realizing that the story wasn't over yet. Someone else was pulling the strings, and the real truth was still out there. James arrived at the location from the mysterious message, a quiet park lit only by distant streetlights. His heart raced as he spotted a hooded figure waiting. As he approached, the figure pulled back the hood. It was Sarah. Before he could speak, she held up her hand. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice trembling. Sarah admitted that the pregnancy wasn't real, but was her desperate attempt to escape Mark's manipulation. She confessed that Mark had threatened her, using their affair as leverage to control her financially and emotionally. "I wanted to tell you," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "But I was scared." James stood in silence, the weight of everything crushing him. Betrayed by two people he trusted most, he realized he had a choice: hold on to anger or walk away. Without a word, he turned and left, determined to rebuild his life alone, free from their lies.